In the heart of Canaan, among the tents of the patriarch Jacob, a story of divine destiny and human frailty began. Jacob, in his old age, had a son named Joseph, born of his most beloved wife, Rachel. He loved the boy more than all his other children, and this love was a sun that cast long, dark shadows of envy. As a testament to his affection, Jacob crafted for Joseph a coat of breathtaking beauty, a tapestry of vibrant colors that set him apart. To Joseph, it was a symbol of his father's love. To his 10 older brothers, it was a banner of favoritism, fanning the smoldering embers of their jealousy into a raging fire. Soon, divine visions began to visit Joseph in his sleep. He dreamed he was binding sheaves with his brothers in the field, when suddenly his sheaf arose and stood upright, while their sheaves gathered around and bowed down to it. He told them with the innocence of youth, not grasping the pride they would perceive. Their response was mockery and rage. Later he dreamed again, a vision even grander. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to him. When he shared this, even his father Jacob was unsettled, though he kept the matter in his heart. For the brothers, this was the final insult. The dreamer had to be silenced. The opportunity came when the brothers were grazing their flocks far from home. Seeing Joseph approaching from the distance, their hatred crystallized into a plot. "Behold, this dreamer comes," they sneered. The eldest, Reuben, his conscience stirred, convinced them not to shed his blood but to cast him into a dry pit, secretly planning to return and save him. But in Reuben's absence, the calculating Judah saw a caravan of Ishmaelites approaching and made a colder proposition. "What profit is it if we slay our brother? Let us sell him. For 20 pieces of silver, the price of a slave, they sealed their brother's fate. They tore the beautiful coat from his back, a final, brutal act of rejection, and threw him into the darkness of the pit. Their treachery did not end there. To hide their sin, they slaughtered a goat and dipped the precious coat in its blood. They brought the stained, tattered garment to their father, a cruel charade of concern. Jacob's world shattered. He saw the evidence and cried out, 'It is my son's coat. A fierce animal has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn to pieces.' His grief was an inconsolable chasm. Meanwhile, the son he mourned was bound in chains, a mere piece of cargo on a dusty path to Egypt. The dreamer's journey had begun, stripped of everything he had ever known, walking toward a future forged in betrayal, yet unknowingly guided by a hand far greater than that of his brothers. Joseph's journey ended at the gates of Memphis, the glorious capital of Egypt. Sold in the bustling slave market, the boy with the coat of many colors was now just another piece of human property. Yet, even in the degradation of the auction block, a divine light shone from him. It was seen by Potiphar, a captain of Pharaoh's own guard, who purchased the young Hebrew bringing him into his household, not knowing he was bringing in a blessing. For the Lord was with Joseph, that everything he touched prospered. The fields yielded more, the livestock multiplied, and the household ran with an efficiency Potiphar had never known. Seeing this, Potiphar elevated Joseph, entrusting him with everything he owned, making the foreign slave the master of his entire estate. As Joseph's status grew, so did his notice. Potiphar's wife, a woman of intoxicating beauty and shallow virtue, began to watch him. She saw not his integrity, but his handsome form, and she desired him. Day after day she approached him with tempting words, her advances growing bolder. But Joseph's character, forged in faith, was unyielding. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? He would say, refusing to betray the trust of his master. His loyalty to both man and God was a shield she could not penetrate. Her desire, spurned, festered into a venomous obsession. One day, finding him alone in the house, she seized her chance. She grabbed him by his garment, her voice a desperate command, "Lie with me." In that moment, Joseph made a choice. He fled, abandoning his cloak in her hand, choosing to preserve his honor over his position. Left with the empty garment, her lust curdled into a furious hatred. She clutched the cloak, the symbol of his virtue, and twisted it into a weapon of deceit. She began to scream, gathering the men of her household, and with feigned terror she wove her lie. The Hebrew slave had come in to mock them, to assault her, and had fled when she cried out, leaving his cloak as proof of his guilt. When Potiphar returned, his wife's performance was flawless. She presented the cloak and her story, and his love for her, combined with the shame of such a betrayal, ignited a hot and terrible wrath. He didn't seek the truth. He saw only the evidence before him. The trusted servant was instantly condemned. Once again, Joseph was bound in chains, his meteoric rise crashing down into the dust. He was cast into the king's prison, a place for those who had offended the throne. The darkness of the pit had returned, deeper and more hopeless than before. Yet even as the stone door sealed his fate, the spark in Joseph's eyes was not extinguished, for he knew in the core of his being that his story was not over. It was merely waiting for the next chapter to be written by the same divine hand that had guided him all along. But even in the king's prison, Joseph was not alone. The Lord showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the chief jailer. Soon, the warden entrusted everything to Joseph's hand. The prisoner was running the prison. It was here that his path crossed with two of Pharaoh's own officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, who had been cast into the dungeon. One morning, Joseph found them despondent, troubled by dreams they could not comprehend. With compassion, he said, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me." The cupbearer spoke of a vine with 3 branches that yielded grapes for Pharaoh's cup. Joseph's interpretation was a promise of hope. In 3 days he would be restored. "But remember me," Joseph pleaded, "when it is well with you." The baker then told his dream of birds eating from baskets of bread on his head. For him the interpretation was dire. In 3 days he would be executed. And just as Joseph had foretold, it came to pass. The baker was hanged, and the cupbearer was restored to his post. But in the joy of his freedom, the cupbearer forgot his promise. He forgot the young Hebrew who languished in the darkness. 2 full years passed, each day a heavy stone on Joseph's waiting heart. Then a divine disquiet fell upon the throne of Egypt. Pharaoh himself was plagued by 2 powerful, terrifying dreams. He saw 7 fat, healthy cows devoured by 7 gaunt and ugly ones. He saw 7 plump heads of grain swallowed by 7 thin and blighted heads. He awoke, his spirit deeply troubled. He summoned all the magicians and wise men of his kingdom, but none could unravel the meaning of the visions. It was only then, in the ensuing silence and frustration, that the chief cupbearer's conscience was pricked. He remembered his fault. He remembered Joseph. A command was issued. Guards stormed the prison, not for punishment, but for a summons. Joseph was pulled from the shadows, hastily shaved and clothed in fine linen. He was rushed from the grime of the dungeon into the blinding opulence of the palace. Within moments, the forgotten prisoner, the boy betrayed by his brothers and forsaken by his friend, stood before the throne of Pharaoh himself. His years of suffering had led him to this single pivotal moment, where the fate of an entire empire would rest upon the words from his mouth. Before the mighty Pharaoh, Joseph gave all credit not to himself, but to God. He declared that the 2 dreams were one message. 7 years of unprecedented abundance were coming to Egypt, followed by 7 years of a famine so terrible it would consume the land, and the memory of plenty would be lost. The dream was doubled, Joseph explained, because the matter was decreed by God and would happen soon. Then, going beyond mere interpretation, Joseph laid out a bold strategy. Appoint a wise man over Egypt to collect 1/5 of the harvest during the plentiful years and store it as a provision against the years of drought. The plan was so brilliant, so divinely logical, that Pharaoh and all his officials were in awe. The king looked at the former slave and saw a vessel of the divine. "Can we find anyone like this man?" he declared, "one in whom is the Spirit of God?" In a breathtaking turn of fate, Pharaoh promoted Joseph on the spot. "You shall be over my house," he proclaimed, placing his own signet ring on Joseph's finger, clothing him in royal linen, and bestowing upon him a new name, Zaphnath-Paneah. The man who had entered the throne room in chains now rode in the 2nd chariot, second in command over all of Egypt. For 7 years, Joseph's plan unfolded with perfect precision. Egypt overflowed with abundance, and he gathered grain in such quantities that he stopped keeping records. During this time, God healed the wounds of his past, giving him a family, a wife, Asenath, and 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, names that meant forgetting his hardship and being fruitful in affliction. He was no longer a slave or a prisoner. He was a husband, a father, and a provider for a nation. Then, just as he had prophesied, the years of plenty ended. The famine began. It was not a local drought, but a global crisis gripping all the surrounding lands. When the people of Egypt cried to Pharaoh for food, his decree was simple: go to Joseph. The storehouses were opened, and he began to sell grain to the starving population, saving the nation from ruin. But the famine's reach was long. From every corner of the earth, desperate people began the long journey to the one place on earth that had food. They were all coming to Egypt, coming to buy grain from the great viceroy, unknowingly setting the stage for the final act of a family drama that had begun with a bloody coat and a dark pit so many years ago. The famine drove Jacob's sons to the one place on earth that had bread, Egypt. They came and bowed down before the land's powerful viceroy, their faces to the ground, fulfilling a dream they had long forgotten. Joseph knew them at once, but they did not know him. Hidden behind the mask of a stern Egyptian ruler, he spoke harshly, accusing them of being spies. To test the hearts of the men who had once betrayed him, he demanded they return with their youngest brother, Benjamin, keeping Simeon as a hostage. As they spoke among themselves, confessing their guilt over what they did to him years ago, Joseph understood every word. He turned away to weep. Their return to Canaan was fraught with fear, especially when they found their money returned to their sacks. Their father, Jacob, refused to let Benjamin go, his heart shattered by the loss of Joseph and now Simeon. But the famine was relentless. Led by Judah, who pledged his own life for his youngest brother's safety, they journeyed back. Seeing Benjamin, Joseph was overcome with emotion. He held a feast for them, seating them in perfect birth order, a detail that baffled them. But his final test was yet to come. As they departed, Joseph had his personal silver cup hidden in Benjamin's sack. When his steward discovered it, the brothers were dragged back in despair. It was then that Judah, the very brother who had suggested selling Joseph, fell before the viceroy and offered to become a slave in Benjamin's place, to spare their father from a grief that would kill him. It was the ultimate act of sacrifice, the proof that their hearts had truly changed. Seeing this, Joseph could bear the weight of his secret no longer. He ordered everyone from the room. Alone with the men who had sold him into slavery, the great viceroy of Egypt broke down. Through powerful, heaving sobs, he finally spoke to them in their own tongue, the language of their childhood. "I am Joseph," he cried. "Is my father still alive?" The brothers stood frozen, paralyzed by shock and fear. as the ghost they thought long buried stood before them, alive and holding their very lives in his hand. The brothers stood paralyzed, staring at the great Egyptian ruler who claimed to be the brother they had condemned to death. Seeing their terror, Joseph gently urged them closer. "I am your brother, Joseph," he repeated, "the one you sold into slavery." But instead of vengeance, his voice carried an astonishing message of grace. He told them not to be angry with themselves, for it was God who had sent him ahead of them. "You intended to harm me," Joseph explained, his words healing the wounds of decades, "but God intended it for good, to save many lives." He urged them to hurry and bring their father, Jacob, and the entire family to Egypt to escape the famine. Pharaoh himself endorsed the plan, providing wagons and the best of Egypt's resources for the journey. After an emotional farewell, the brothers returned to Canaan with the unbelievable news: Joseph is alive. At first, their father's aged heart could not comprehend it. But when he saw the wagons from Egypt, Jacob's spirit revived. "It is enough," he declared, his hope reborn. "My son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." The entire clan of Israel journeyed to Egypt. As they arrived in the land of Goshen, Joseph rode out in his royal chariot to meet them. He saw his father, frail and aged, and after a lifetime of separation, they ran to each other. Joseph embraced his father and wept. Holding the son he had mourned for so long, Jacob said, "Now I am ready to die, for I have seen your face and know you are alive." The boy with a colorful coat, sold in betrayal, now stood as a prince and a savior, his family reunited and safe. The long, painful story that began with jealousy and a dark pit had come to its end, not in revenge, but in forgiveness, reconciliation, and the triumphant fulfillment of a divine plan.